After 400 chapters, All Might's death is finally here.
No! God, please, no! No!
We knew this day would come, from Deku narrating the story as though he is giving an obituary about his sensei, to even Night Eye's own future sight of his gruesome demise. All Might is literally going out with a bang. But we have reached the finale of My Hero Academia. Shoto has made amends with his family and overcome his dumbass brother. Meanwhile, Uraraka fought Toga, who had the strongest quirk combination with twice his doubles. A quirk said to be so strong that even All For One was afraid. But being the future wife of the #1 hero Midoriya, she awakened her real quirk. The truest quirk, girl talk.
Are you serious right now, bro?
However, with Toga's defeat, all the Twices have disappeared from the battlefield, allowing the other students some much needed reprieve, such as Momo with her 2 best friends. I'm talking about the machine guns on her shoulder. This editor is so down bad. Why are you zooming on that?
Yeah, boy.
With the Twice clones gone, Yue becomes lighter, allowing the heroes to keep floating. However, All For One is approaching Shigaraki to become the Demon Lord, because remember, you can't make a manga without a Demon Lord. That's like one of the first rules in the manga making rulebook.
Of course!
But remember, Deku arrived when all hope seemed lost. With Bakugo dead, Mirio about to be killed, Aizawa on his last leg, basically everyone is dying. So Deku realized that Shigaraki is still within his soul, even after being merged with All For One. Meaning there is hope for Tenko Shimura. As Deku promised Nana, he would attempt to save her grandson by understanding his feelings of loneliness. Yep, the Talk no Jutsu can still be achieved.
I'm blocking you. That was the dumbest shit I heard all day.
But even with Deku using the second user's quirk transmission, Shigaraki wouldn't go down. Luckily though, Lady Nagant used her 360 no-scope and shot Shigaraki, giving him the perfect chance he needed to take back his body and soul from All For One. Leading us to now, where Deku is doing everything he can to keep Shigaraki away from Yue, fighting him at a close distance. But unluckily for them, All For One is on his way to make Shiggy his bitch again.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
Yep, that's right. This dude is still not done. And right behind him is All Might. Bro, like, what is going on? This man should be dead like 200 chapters ago. What are you doing still kicking and fighting? All Might is still holding on for dear life and clinging on to All For One, making sure he doesn't crash Deku and Shigaraki's date. But even after All Might using his trump card of Hercules, All For One is in range to use Gloop Quirk to bring Shiggy closer to him and give him the synthetic copy of All For One, making his body finally his. All Might tries to taunt All For One, but he's him. He's looking at All Might, basically saying, bruh, you are dead. What is your skeleton ass gonna do? With All Might on the ground, All For One activates Gloop, appearing inside of Shigaraki's mouth. He was taking no chances. He knew Deku would interfere, so he's trying to spawn inside Shigaraki, which would have been the perfect plan if Shigaraki didn't say, "You're not my dad," and shut his mouth. Shiggy has gained full control over himself, with his shorter hair signifying this change. Imagine his perspective, alright? At this point in the story, he knows All For One is the one that's manipulated his life. All For One killed his grandmother Nana Shimura, led to his father's disdain for heroes, causing him to beat his son for daring to even dream of a hero life. His self-loathing and hatred is a direct cause of that effect. But in chapter 379, Shigaraki broke free from the hands of All For One. He hates being controlled, being used as some sort of a pawn in his master's scheme. And so he decided that he only had one goal now: to destroy everything that revolved around his childhood trauma. But wait, Shigaraki is a hypocrite. This grown-ass man manipulated you since you were 6 years old, made you wear your own dead parents' hands to shackle you, killed your grandmother, made your father an orphan, messing up your entire childhood like you were his bitch before you were even born. You are nothing but a tool for All For One. Society didn't see you as a person, so you lash out but are okay with losing your identity to a freaking thumb? Also, he can steal his brother's quirk he hasn't been able to get for 150 years? What the fuck is this shit? man. Maybe all that crust got into Shigaraki's eyes so he can't see that he's actually one of the biggest victims of All for One. He saw you when everyone ignored you. Boo-hoo! Rise up against the man who was the catalyst to all your suffering instead of being a loser who finds satisfaction in going after innocents who have done nothing to you. You can't even use the justification of victimhood or ignorance to excuse your behavior anymore. Instead of directing your anger towards someone who genuinely deserves it and manipulating you like a puppet, you persist with your irrational outbursts. What is wrong with this kid? Like, Deku may cry every other chapter, but the real baby are these entitled villains thinking the world owes them something.
He's out of line, but he's right.
However, All for One tells All Might that Shigaraki acting out is due to him. It's his fault for putting those idiotic views of free will within Shiggy, suggesting that even in this rebellious nature, Shigaraki is still under his control. Oh my god, this dude is full of hell. Meaning, it's time for Plan B, which is grabbing All Might like a toy and flying over to Deku and Shigaraki as he beats up the goat even more. This obviously causes Deku to freak out, and Shigaraki takes this opportunity to say that Deku can go and save All Might, but while he does that, he's gonna go and kill all of his friends. This sends Deku into a frenzy. He states that he had stopped crying because All Might told him to stop being a baby in chapter 95, but now he's at his limit.
Wait a minute!
He stopped crying at chapter 95. What the f is this dude talking about? You did not stop crying at chapter 95. Roll the tapes.
So that was a lie.
However, as much as we joke about it, like, Deku crying this time is actually justified. Like, his mentor who he idolized since he was in diapers, the one who reaffirmed Deku's dream and gave him a chance when no one else did, is now on the brink of death. Like, Deku here has to make a choice between his duty as a hero and his personal feelings. The heroic thing to do here is obvious. Deal with Shiggy and let All Might die. However, either choice will give Deku a world of hurt and regret that if he was just a bit stronger, maybe he could have saved both. Remember in chapter 131, Deku promised his sensei that he will defy destiny and will make sure All Might will not die, even though in chapter 95 All Might said he would devote everything to Deku even in his weakened state. In parallel, Shigaraki also made a promise in chapter 68 and 246 that he needs to obliterate all the dregs All Might left behind as he hates the smiles of civilization, which is extremely sad because Gran Torino confirmed to us that All Might doesn't see Shigaraki as a criminal, who of course will seal his death. In fact, what's more insane is that in chapter 131, All Might tells Deku, "I'll use this very hand to defy fate," and guess what he's using to blow himself up against All for One in chapter 402? Yup, the same hand.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
A true hero isn't born just by you helping others, but rather through sacrifice. For example, All Might had to sacrifice his body and longevity to overcome All for One in their first battle. It's not just his sensei's impending death that is anguish to Deku, but also the fact that he indirectly has to choose to save All Might or the rest of UA. We then see All Might's vestige slowly disappearing, with Deku giving off an agonizing scream. All Might's vestige DNA existed in One for All because he made the quirk his own. He was just like Deku, who was quirkless, being able to master it, but with the embers weakening over time, it's finally gone. It means his death is confirmed as he tells Deku farewell. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. All Might was always going to die. Technically, All Might, the #1 hero, the wielder of One for All, died in his last battle against All for One. However, the spirit of the boy Nana Shimura chose to be her successor still lives on, allowing him to prove us wrong by pulling his own weight with the Hercules robot suit. Plus, there is nothing more All Might can provide to the story right. With his powers gone and his suit broken, all he can do is chase Deku to give him a bento box. Even his role as a sensei is over. This heroic decision Deku has to make is kind of like his graduation. A constant reoccurring theme in My Hero has always been the passing of the torch, letting the next generation take control of the world. So it's only natural that All Might will die and Deku will become the person to save everyone. This represents the moral dichotomy of my hero, as All for One represents stagnation, an unwillingness to allow the next generation to rise to the top, while All Might represents progression, using all of his knowledge to help the next generation. This goes directly into the idea that Deku is now the new symbol of peace, ushering in a new age for heroes, as the entire story is foretold to us at the start of the manga. For this message to come full circle, All for One has to die, as the final battle of the series needs to be Deku versus a completely free Shigaraki, because remember, even though he's regained control over himself, All for One can still find him and complete the hijacking process. Meanwhile, All Might then begins to remember Deku's question in chapter 1 of if he can be a hero without a quirk. Meanwhile, all of Deku's accomplishments as a hero flood All Might's mind, reaffirming that question in his head as a yes, that Deku always does his best and never gives up on his dream, making him a true hero just like his idol. With this knowledge, All Might understands that even though he is bloody, injured, and quirkless, he still won't give up on his dream to be the symbol of peace. This goes all the way back to chapter 1 once again, as All Might is now in the same place Deku was when he helped Bakugo against the sludge villain. Even though he had no quirk, he rushed in to save innocent lives, which prompted All Might to entrust Midoriya with All for One. And now, All Might, being in the exact same position, is ready to sacrifice his life to keep his promise as the #1 hero. This is peak writing, man. Koshi is sick. This chapter is a 9 out of 10 certified banger. However, even though his vestige is fading, this man ain't done yet. There's no way he's gonna let someone like All for One beat his ass with no consequences, as All Might goes plus ultra. He grabs All for One's neck with the gauntlet and smiles, causing the Demon Lord to have PTSD or a Vietnam flashback. He can't comprehend why though. After all, to him, Nana was nothing more than a pathetic woman who died in a ridiculous way. Yet her final words, which at the time All for One saw as nothing more than a joke, come back to haunt him. All for One, All Might is going to defeat you because Toshinori is crazier than you. Look at the wording here. This is peak. All Might isn't the #1 right now. He doesn't have his powers. It's Toshinori who decided to get inside Hercules, and now this declaration is coming true. All for One, in his obsession with power, can never see beyond the quirk of the person, whereas the power of One for All is solely dependent on the person that wields it. Nana had purposely mentioned Toshinori's name rather than his epithet of All Might because the person behind the hero's image is what makes All Might the strongest. All of this manifested All Might's resolve to blow himself up so he can complete the mission of ending All for One for good. Even with death closing in on him, he mocks All for One but questions him on whether he'll become a kindergarten and through his rewind quirk if he kills him one more time, because he's nothing but a child who read comic books and didn't bother finish reading them on what the true ending actually is in chapter 193, 257, and 364. Remember, he informed him that the ending was the heroes winning against the Demon Lord. With the old generation and All for One and All Might taken out, the only thing left is for us to witness the finale of Deku versus Shigaraki. But speaking of someone achieving their true form, Sukuna's Heian era form has returned after 1,000 years. So go watch that video on screen right now.